यस्य किञ्चित् जगत्सर्वं दृश्यते श्रूयते विभाः अहङ्कारबहिश्च तत्सर्वं दास्या नारायणः स्थितः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Let us offer our salutations to the all-pervading, all-blissful divine spirit who dwells in the hearts of us all. He is the Lord of the past, present and future, and supreme self. Out of him, the all-pervading, all-blissful divine spirit, we all have come into being. In him we live, in him we serve. Oh, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Let us for a few moments sit quiet, relaxing our body and mind. Let us offer our salutations to the Supreme, all-pervading Spirit. May He guide our understanding. Let us offer our salutations also to all the great teachers and saints of the world. Teachers and saints whose teachings we all have inherited. May they inspire us with love for the truth. The Supreme Spirit is the source of all purity, strength and peace. Let us breathe in vibrations of purity. Let them destroy all our impurities. Let us breathe out vibrations of purity. Let us breathe in vibrations of strength. Let them destroy all our weaknesses. Let us breathe out vibrations of strength. Let us breathe in vibrations of peace. Let the vibrations destroy all our restlessness. Let us breathe out vibrations of peace. Let us send forth currents of purity, strength and peace to all our fellow beings, to the east, to the west, to the north, to the south. Let us be at peace with ourselves, at peace with the whole world. Let us now take up the position of the weakness of the spectator and draw our minds from all distractions, from sound and other troubles. Let us detach ourselves also from all these thoughts, pictures and feelings that rise within. Let us be wide awake. Our body is a divine temple. Let us focus our consciousness in the sanctuary of our heart and there feel that our soul is like a little sphere of light. And this little sphere of light is part of the infinite spirit, shining everywhere. Infinite being is immanent in the sun, moon, stars and planets. Infinite spirit shines in all beings. The spirit is immanent in our eyes, ears, in all our senses. The divine spirit shines in our mind, it shines in our heart. Let us all feel the contact. The Mani's meditation on the Supreme Spirit as Satchitananda, infinite existence, consciousnessly. He worships the same being in various aspects as God the Father, God the Mother, God the Friend, God the Beloved. The Infinite Spirit manifests itself as the great gods and goddesses. He again comes down on earth as it were in the form of a divine incarnation for blessing mankind. We may select any theme we please for our meditation, but as we meditate, let us all see that both the worshippers and the worshipped are drowned in the one Satchidananda, infinite existence, consciousness, bliss. It is really the one infinite being that manifests itself in one aspect as the devotee, in another aspect as the deity. Let us feel the divine contact in our heart of heart. And may the divine presence soothe our nerves, calm our minds, quiet our hearts. May the divine spirit guide our understanding and enlighten our consciousness. Let us for a few moments meditate on the all-pervading, all-blissful Spirit. In any aspect we see, in any way we see, let us by all means feel the divine contact. Hana bhavate, hano bhunakte, sahaviryam karavavahe, tejasvinavati tamastu, ma viddishavahe. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May the all-pervading, all-blissful divine Spirit, the soul of our soul, protect us all. May He guide us all. May He nourish us all. May the teachings that we learn become fruitful and fruitful to His grace. May peace and harmony dwell amongst us all. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. As I told you, I used to fill up the gap in the absence of Swami Shastrananda, and as I was thinking of this subject, I would like to speak to you. I was just thinking, two little boys were bragging about their mother. One boy says, my mother can speak on any subject. And the other boy, he didn't hear. He said, my mother can speak even when there is no subject. The second one is dangerous. I don't dare that. So I wish to speak to you about the spiritual practice. As a matter of fact, I'm going to explain to you the steps that we have followed in our simple meditation. First of all, it is essential on our part to hold before us the spiritual ideal clearly. Those of us who believe in the existence of the soul, in the Atma, those of us who believe in the existence of the Paramatma, the soul of all souls, aspire to have our union with Him, and through Him we want to aspire up the union with all. When as students we approach the great disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, they place before us the ideal of self-realization. By self-realization they did not mean anything exclusive. They told us clearly that the more you come to the Supreme Spirit, the more you experience Him, the more you feel He is manifest in all. And then, what follows is that being the Lord in all. But, before that, try to follow the spiritual path to prayer and worship. Get some clear conception of the deity, to dwell in our heart, to dwell in everyone. Now, since this is the ideal, the question arises, what path do we follow? And here too, they place before us the twofold ideal, work and worship should go hand in hand. Work is to be performed in the spirit of Karma Yoga. We perform activities of various kinds, but we do not know how to do it. Perform our duty. How can we do it? In various activities. They have to be done in a spirit of detachment and first in a spirit of duty. Duty must be performed under all circumstances. And then, as we are found, we feel we have to offer all the fruits of our work in Supreme Spirit, who is the presiding deity of all forms of activity. Then there comes a time we work while for pleasing the Lord. We look to the Kama. And then there is a time when we feel the divine presence permeating, interpenetrating us, we become just channels for the flow of divine power, the divine power that works for the good of mankind. And just as work is to be done in the proper spirit, so also worship is to be performed in the right manner. All of us have to perform work of some kind or other. Work is compulsory. But the trouble is, worship is optional. And most of us are inclined to do any worship, any japa or meditation. And that's the problem. If we be hungry spiritually, we'd like to take food, spiritual food. We feed our body, and we should feed the body with good, healthy food. We feed our mind to our studies. The idea should be good. Similarly, we should feed the soul. How? Through the practice of worship, practice of japa, to the practice of meditation. By the parable of Ramakrishna, the child was going to bed and said, Mommy, if I feel hungry, please wake me up. And the mother said, I am not to do that. Your hunger will wake you up. There comes a time, in the course of the evolution of the soul, when we do become spiritually hungry, and then we must have food. I am reminded of the remarkable saying of the Holy Mother. Holy Mother said, once, food stock is there. He who cooks food early would have his appetite appeased. Many of us are lazy. We don't want to cook at the proper time. Maybe we want to cook maybe late in the evening. So lazy so that they can cook their food. And naturally, they feel miserable. When we try, you sit quiet and try to do some form of worship, some form of japa meditation. At the beginning, we come up with it. That is, but my Brahman is together. I'll do a little reading from the Eternal Companion, the spiritual teachings of the Swami. So many of us practice japa and meditation regularly. Don't fail even for one day. The mind is like a spoiled child, always restless. Try to steady it again and again by fixing it on the chosen ideal. And at last you will become absorbed in Him. If you continue your practice for 2 or 3 years, you'll begin to feel an unspeakable joy and the mind will become steady. In the beginning, the practice of japa and meditation seems dry. It is like taking bitter medicine. You must pour the thought of God into your mind. And as you persist, you will be flooded with joy. What a terrible ordeal a student undergoes to pass his examination. Do you know that to realize God is far easier? Call on Him sincerely with a thankful heart. The disciple to whom he was speaking said, at times I feel that with all my struggle, I am making no progress. It all seems unreal. Despair takes hold of me. And the Swami said him, oh, no. There is no cause for despair. The effect of meditation is inevitable. You are bound to get results. If you practice japa and meditation with devotion, or even without it, but devotion will follow. Continue your practice regularly, you will find peace. And then the Swami remarks, one's health also is improved if one meditates. Meditation in the primary stage is like waging a war with the mind. With effort, the less restless mind has to be brought under control and placed at the feet of the Lord. But you want, in the beginning, take care that while you meditate, you do not overtax your brain. Go slowly. Gradually intensify your effort. Regular practice, and the mind has become steady, meditation will be easier. You will not feel any strain in sitting for long hours in contemplation. And then he remarks, just as after a deep sleep, a man feels refreshed in body and mind, so will you feel refreshed after meditation, and there will follow an intense experience of happiness. Body and mind are closely related. When the body is disturbed, the mind also becomes disturbed. Therefore, particular care must be taken as regards diet. The body is to be kept healthy. Meditation is not an easy affair. When you have eaten too much, the mind becomes restless. Also, unless you keep lust, anger, greed, and such other passions under control, the mind will remain unsteady. How can you meditate with an unsteady mind? Unless you meditate, the mind cannot be controlled. And unless the mind is controlled, you cannot meditate. But if you think that let me control the mind, then I shall meditate, you never enter the path of spiritual life. You must do both at the same time. Steady your mind as much as you can and meditate. And as you sit down to meditate, think of the cravings and desires of the mind as mere dreams. Say, see, they are unreal. They can never attach themselves to the mind. Feel that you are pure, and that purity will gradually fill your mind. If you wish to realize God, practice spiritual discipline with patience and perseverance. In due course, you will be enlightened. And when the Supreme Being is realized, the illumined soul attains peace and blessedness and shares his peace and blessedness with his fellow beings. That is the ideal the Swami holds before us, and he places before us also the practice which we should follow with a view to realize the ideal. As I said, when you wish to sit quietly, many types of disturbances arise in the mind. Sometimes when you are not sitting for meditation, you will feel an amount of calmness, but the moment you sit for meditation, especially at the beginning, mind becomes turbulent, body may be aching, our senses again may be running riot, and wind of wild thoughts would be arising in the mind. And japa and meditation becomes a great struggle, but struggle has to be done. The mystics of all religions place before us the ideal of, first of all, attaining minimum purity. Purity of the body, purity of the senses, purity of the mind, and also purity of the ego. The body may be suffering from some disease. The different organs of the body do not coordinate, do not function properly. And again, our senses are all outgoing, eager to come in touch with sense objects. Our mind is swayed by desire, swayed by passion. Our mind is swayed by past impressions. And then again, there's another type of conflict we have in our mind. Our thinking goes one way, feeling goes a second way, will goes a third way. And besides that, our ego is perverse. To give an illustration, the little bubble is thinks of itself too much. It forgets the other bubble. It forgets in the ocean and wants to grow, but happens the bubble bursts. And this actually happens with many human beings. Now, let us not be terrified by all these troubles that appear before us. In the Bhagavad Gita we find Arjuna complained to the Lord, you speak of mental control, you speak of self-realization. Now I find my mind is more turbulent, I cannot control it. The master recognized the difficulty of the student, and with great sympathy and love he said, yes, what you say is right. But by following the proper means, through the practice of detachment, through constant meditation, this uncontrollable mind, what appears to be uncontrollable, can be controlled. And eventually then, one comes in touch with the Supreme Spirit, which is the soul of our soul, the soul of the universe. First of all, we complain too much about our environment. We really do not want to do anything, always complaining about the environment. Well, suppose we change the environment, the same complaint will be there. We don't find anywhere an ideal environment. Well, such a thing doesn't exist. And we take this view, environment is not favorable, how can I practice meditation? Well, right here we have to practice meditation. Don't you try to sleep in the midst of the most troublesome environment? Similarly, we have to try to practice meditation, whatever be the nature of the environment, how are we withdrawing ourselves from all the outside disturbances, just as we do before we fall into it. That is the practice. Then again, we have our troubles inside. Maybe the body is diseased. Many times we hear complaints, the moment they sit for meditation, I get a headache. Well, meditation itself is a headache. And then try to be healthy. That is why Bhagavan Sri Krishna says at the beginning of the 6th chapter of the Dhyana Yoga, one must first of all live a regulated life in food, in sleep, in activity, in rest. One should follow the middle path avoiding the extreme. This gives the spiritual seeker an amount of capacity to pursue the life of yoga. Teacher of yoga, Patanjali, is unwilling to give an instruction on asana or posture unless and until, to some extent, the spiritual seeker is established in what he calls yama and niyama. The spiritual seeker should practice ahimsa, should tell the truth, should not be greedy, should practice continence as much as possible, should not depend on others hopelessly, should try to stand on one's own feet. And if that is not enough, he says, one should practice amount of purity, external and internal. One should try to be contented, adapted to one's own environment as much as possible. One should practice discipline of the body, discipline of speech, discipline of the mind. And one should study the scriptures and assimilate the ideas. Even that is not enough. Egocentric activity is no good. One must try to surrender oneself completely to the Supreme Spirit, who, as the devotee later on discovers, his own officer. First of all, we come to regard God as a power. The Brahman used to tell us, you can never be fully established in morality unless you believe in God. By God, he did not mean an extra-cosmic being. And he said, first of all, we think of God as a power who has brought this world into being, who sustains it, and who takes it back. As we progress, that power which we thought was outside, we find that is not only a power, it is a presence within. And advancing further, the spiritual seeker feel the presence of the divine in all. Some form of discipline is to be performed so that our body may be trained to some extent, senses may be trained, and then mind to be trained, and not only that, ego also is to be trained. How do we train the body? Take care of good food. Avoid overeating. And select the food that agrees with you, that conduces to the harmony of the body. Many people think eating food is the greatest exercise for the stomach. That's not enough. So apart from that, you must also have some exercise of all the limbs, especially have some exercise of the stomach, so that digestion, assimilation, and evacuation can be as fast as possible. These are the rules, primary rules that are to be followed. That's why the ancient teachers said, Shariram Adyam Kulu Dharma Dharma. The first dharma is to take care of the body, to have a good body that is fit for the pursuit of spiritual life. I see sometimes weaklings coming. I want to forget my body. What body have you? It is a body or what? A mass of flesh and bone. Develop the body properly. Sometimes they come and say, Swami, I want to forget all my mind itself. What mind have you got? Some people come this to have fun on the word. Monos, in Bengali call it mon. Now, mon may be a mon, 80 pounds. And so Swami will say, is it your mon? Your mon got a weight of 80 pounds. Or only a chatak, 1/4 of a share. What sort of mind you have? So, mind is to be developed. Will is to be developed. Thoughts and feelings are to be developed. If there is spiritual aspiration, everything becomes easy. When you want to pass an examination, may not be so much as we have in India, for acquiring knowledge, for getting some appointment to maintain myself and my family, then what an amount of trouble we take. Here also, if we keep alive the forest, in a bright condition, the ideal, spiritual ideal, everything becomes easy. All the trouble that we take would be what's taking. Let us remind ourselves of the wonderful analogy we have in the Upanishad. The Upanishad says the body is a chariot. Senses are like the horses. The mind is like the rain. Intellect is like the charioteer, and the Atma is the master of the chariot. As the chariot moves, some of the wheels run away. Can it move? Horses have become tempestuous, turbulent. Control the horses. And then make your rein straight. And then make your rein straight. Let the master chariot ask the charioteer to be wide awake. The master had gone to sleep, charioteer became drunk, and then the reins became slack, horses were running wild, and then, fortunately, there was no great disaster. So before a disaster comes, let us be wide awake. Let master chariot be wide awake. Let him ask the charioteer to be alert. And then, with the help of the mind, control the senses. Take the senses along the right path. And then the chariot will move. But let us remember, none of us can attain perfection in this spiritual discipline. Minimum progress is necessary so that our body may be in a harmonious state, our mind, senses would be in a harmonious state, and our mind also would be in a harmonious state. And ego, the perverse ego, would be in a mood to come in touch with cosmic will that lies behind our little will. When, to some extent, we have become established, remember to some extent, in bringing about the harmony of the body, bringing about the harmony in the mind, bringing about the harmony in our senses, and when have succeeded in awakening the spiritual aspiration. When we have done this to some extent, then we may start with posture. To some extent, the teacher of yoga asks us to sit in a certain posture. What we have to do? The reason is Sthira-Sukham Asana. Select that posture in which you can sit steadily and in which you feel at ease. Someone may ask, may I lie down? When you lie down, you may practice Savasana, but you take an amount of risk. That posture is usually associated with sleep. And by lying down and trying to practice meditation, you may not progress at all. You may have a little good nap, that will refresh you, but that will make you spiritually dull. Asina or Sambhava, as what the Vedanta Sutra says, the sitting posture is better, but take care is in a relaxed posture in which you feel relaxed in body, you feel relaxed in mind. After sitting, remember the Lord. He is our ideal. He is indwelling spirit. He is inside and outside. Maybe chant a prayer. Be a little musical. Let your mind and your senses and the body vibrate with little spiritual vibration. And salute the Supreme Being. One great danger in spiritual life, when we follow a particular path, that likely to be very, very fanatical. So here it is very good to salute not only Supreme Spirit, salute the great teachers and the saints of all countries, salute the great teachers and saints born in the different parts of the country. What happens? Mind becomes strong. And the danger in spiritual life is to be extremely selfish. Many times I have found, at least at the beginning of one's spiritual life, spiritual seekers think too much of themselves. They forget the others. So, it is good to pray not only for one's own welfare, pray for the welfare of all. Just as you aspire after peace, you want to attain to purity, you want to attain illumination, pray for everybody. Let all people move towards the Supreme Being. Let all people feel purity. Let all people feel illumination, illuminated. This prayer has a broadening effect. Posture. Salutation to the Supreme Being is all pervading. Salutation to all the great teachers and prophets of the world. What will they do? they will help in expanding our mind, in expanding our consciousness to some extent, and then we will proceed along this spiritual path. A little practice of rhythmic breathing is very good. Breathe in, take your breath, full breath. Take a deep breath, breathe in and breathe out. It is not hold, but as I said, keep this satisfaction. You breathe in purity. Infinite being, the source of all purity, source of all strength, source of all peace. And as a matter of fact, in spiritual life, we cannot have enough of purity, not have enough of strength and peace. The more we get, the better. And fill yourself with divine purity, divine strength and peace, and send forth currents of purity. Have mercy towards all, be friendly towards all, and you will be surprised to find it will be easy for you to rise to higher plane of consciousness. You have succeeded in culturing this mood. And when you are in this mood, it is easy also to detach our senses from their sense objects. Yes, you are able to have culture, a state of distraction. The senses want to go and come in touch with the outer world, control the senses, give the senses an inward turn. As you put it to this, visualize the activities of the senses. Vajram karneti sriyama devaha. Vajram paschimasti vijajastraha. Now, hear what is good. Hear. Speak what is good. See what is good. Give a good direction to what is to the senses. Let them be visualized. Now, mind is trying to run riot how to calm the mind. As I Brahmanda suggested, all these desires and passions, they create troubles to the mind. At least when you are in a spiritual mood, when you are in this expanded mood, see, these are all distractions, they are your enemies. As Bhagavan Sri Ram tells us, and told his disciples, don't be afraid of kama, krodha, lobha, moha, madhamaskara. Don't be afraid. Spiritualize them. Yearn to have divine communion. Get angry with your anger. Get angry with all that stands in your way, not with people. And then, covet the Supreme Being who is the greatest wealth. If you want to feel proud, you feel proud thinking you are a child of God, and so on. Then what happens? All our desires are given a spiritual turn, a wrong conception. Some shallow psychologists say, oh, you are all suppressing your emotions, or repressing your emotions, so you don't do anything of the kind. You want to store up the energy of our senses, you want to store up the energy of our mind, and we want to direct this energy along the spiritual path. You want to sing the glory of the Lord. You want to visualize the form of the Supreme Being. You want to direct our senses inwardly so that there comes a time, the life of the spiritual seeker, one comes to unfold new eyes for seeing the invisible, new ears for hearing the divine voice, new ears for hearing the music of the spheres, the pranava that is going on eternally. One is able to replace the divine vision. But all this on the way, you have to go further. In the analogy that we read in the Upanishad, it refers to the body is likened to a ratha, a carriage. The other analogy, Deha Devalaya, is a grand conception. The body is a temple. In this temple we find there are the devotees and there is the eating, and we must be able to bring about the union of the two. But this temple is a very peculiar temple. As I told many of you on previous occasions, our little body is permeated by, interpreted by our mental body or subtle body. This subtle body again is interpenetrated and permeated by the Jivatma, and Jivatma is part of Paramatma. And as we succeed in making the body harmonious, or the subtle body which is sensitive in the mind harmonious, then what happens? We become more and more conscious of the divine light that shines. So enter the sanctuary of the heart. Find that the heart is filled with light of the Atma, Jivatma, and this light is part of Paramatma. If you want to follow the formless meditation, merge your body, mind, the whole world, put everything into God. Remember, you are just like a little sphere of light. Infinite Spirit takes the form of the ideal you worship, takes the form of the deity you worship, takes the form of the Vishnu. Now meditate. In this infinite light, which is also infinite love and infinite bliss, we have the devotee and we have the deity. He is the embodiment of infinite light, infinite love and bliss. Repeat some appropriate divine name and meditate on him. First of all, meditate on the blissful, luminous form of the Supreme. As you have chosen, meditate on his infinite purity, his infinite love, his infinite compassion, his infinite bliss. Then proceed further, meditate on the infinite consciousness, which is his infinite consciousness, in which is sound. What happens? As one goes on repeating the divine name and meditating on the remarkable things, to moral practice we succeed, as I said, an amount of harmony, but through the harmony that is established through, by repeating the divine name, the harmony that is established by thinking, by meditating on the Lord is a superior kind. And real harmony is established in our mind, in our soul, in a spontaneous way. We feel we are in touch with the cosmic harmony. Our mind, even our body, is a part of the cosmic body of the divine, of the Virat Purusha. Our mind is part of the cosmic mind. Our soul is part of the cosmic soul. Many who practice this spiritual discipline and practice meditation attain to this. And if we follow the way of japa and meditation correctly, we too are sure to be blessed with some form of divine vision, with some form of divine experience. It increases our faith. It makes our mind steady in our path of meditation. Now through the practice of moral culture, they have succeeded in minimizing the disturbance. And now, as we do our japa, we do our meditation, we are giving the mind a certain theme. The name, the divine name, we repeat, draws our attention. We visualize the divine form, that again holds the mind. We divine name, we repeat, draws our attention. We visualize the divine form, that again holds the mind. We now think of the Supreme Spirit, and we think of Him with love in our heart. So, when there is this love and devotion for the ideal, it becomes easy for us to follow the path of japa and meditation. And japa and meditation, what they are doing is this: they keep the mind tight. Sound, the divine form, and the idea, and as I said, along with that love, they keep the mind tight. And when our interest in objects of meditation becomes greater than our interest in outside things, becomes a fact, mind at least for a little while dwells on the Supreme Spirit. As I say, dwells on the divine blissful form, dwells on the noble attitude, then there comes a time when one feels the divine spirit. In the lives of the spiritual seekers we find in this state, many are blessed with divine form, blessed with the divine vision. The divine being manifests itself in some aspect or other, then that he becomes to be. Our teachers will tell us, Guru is within. Top Uddeshamati Guru. We may take the help of an outside teacher at the beginning of our spiritual life, but as we advance, we find the real Guru is inside, and we must place ourselves at the feet of the divine Guru within, and he takes the disciples step by step from lower rungs of spiritual experience to higher and higher rungs. That is how what happens is the same journey. I'm listening to the experiences of all the saints, their songs, the outpourings of their heart, the expressions of spiritual realization, and these experiences actually take place. If we sincerely follow this spiritual path, as I said, after having fulfilled some of the conditions, we are sure to get some results. That's what Brahma is to tell us. That's what he tells us in the passage that we read. The results of meditation are sure to take place. But as we go on with our japa and meditation, let us not look for the results to come. Offer all the fruits of your labor to the Supreme Being. Offer all the fruits of your spiritual practice to the Supreme Being. Learn how to connect your little will with the divine will, and then the miracle takes place. That truth, that reality, which shines within, which shines outside, reveals itself in all its glory, and then there comes the communion between forgiveness, the definition of religion. Religion is the realization of the eternal relation between the eternal soul and the eternal God. But with a view to realize that, we have to take various aspects. Here comes the most important question. Find out where you stand. Find out with what attitude you have to approach the Supreme Being. Very few of us are competent to approach the Supreme Being as the soul of our soul. We, unlike children, we want to depend on the divine being just as a child depends on the father or the mother. We need a friend. We need a life companion. We need one who would love us, whom we can make the center of our love, the center of our emotion. Now, the Lord is there, is manifest in this countless form. Take up anyone. In our study of the various saints of the various sects in Hinduism, we found the devotee begins his spiritual life with the worship, maybe, of God as a master. Some may start worshipping the Supreme Being as a father, as a mother. Some may even look upon the Supreme Being as a divine child. There are devotees who like to love the Lord, as Bala Krishna, as Ramalala. There are devotees who would like to worship the Mother of the Universe as Uma or the Kumari. Now what happens? Through all these forms of worship, through all these forms of meditation, the mind and heart become pure. As I said, the purity that we attain through the practice of morals, that purity is not enough. We want a higher type of purity. The purity that enables the soul to detach itself not only from the body to detach itself, not only from the senses of the mind, and that purity enables the soul to detach itself even from this little ego, the last bondage that the soul has to overcome. Union between the Atma and the Paramatma is to be brought about. And as the Supreme Being, the Supreme Teacher reveals His glory, the devotee realizes the God he has been worshipping is not only inside. The God he has been worshipping is also manifest in all. And then begins a new life, a fuller life, as Bhagavan Sri Krishna says in the Gita. Sarvabhuti Suthatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani. Now, the devotee realizes the Atma, that which is inside is also outside. And seeing the Lord manifest in everyone, he worships the Lord which manifests in everyone. Now here is a point to understand and remember. Most of us are quick to take up only some personal aspects of it. If I approach God, looking upon Him as a master, myself a servant, let us not forget our fellow beings. They are all servants of the Supreme. If I bold enough to think of God as the soul of our soul, then let us remember we all are fellow souls that are eternally connected with the Supreme Spirit, and through our connection with the Supreme Spirit is connected with one another. Then our life takes a return. The great one who told us work and worship should go hand in hand, told us also at the same time, hold this ideal before you. Atmanamokshatham jagat hitayacha. You have to strive for your own salvation, strive for your own spiritual illumination, spiritual freedom, at the same time strive to promote welfare of all. The human soul alone can see God in everyone, and his service is continuous. But those of us who are still in ignorance, people strongly think we are all connected to one another's Buddhist divine spirit, and therefore, as we try to promote our own welfare, let us at the same time try to promote the welfare of all. Here, the instruction that we receive, work and worship should go hand in hand, come step in your meaning.
Here ends the talk by Srimad Swami Yatishwarananda Ji Maharaj.
I feel of all subjects deeply interested in spiritual life, spiritual practice, spiritual realization. Sitting at the feet of the great disciples of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, the religion that we learned was not just individualistic. The great ones told us that as we grow in spirit, we must be able also to help others to move along the spiritual line. In this, Vivekananda centenary year, we are always hearing of the Vivekananda ideal of Atmano Mokshatham Jagat Hitayasha, to work for one's own spiritual freedom, as well as for promoting the welfare of others. Since my young days, I always remember a saying of Swami Vivekananda. He wrote it at the end of his reply to Madras address. First, let us ourselves be gods, and then help others to be gods. This evening I first forwarded to you some sayings of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. I am reading from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Some devotees asked the Master as to how to realize God. Sri Ramakrishna replied, you must practice spiritual discipline a little. The milk contains butter. You must let the milk set into curd and then churn it. Only then can you get butter from it. Spiritual aspirants must go into solitude now and then. After acquiring love of God in solitude, they may live in the world. If one is wearing a pair of shoes, one can easily walk over thorns. The most important thing is faith. As is a man's meditation, so also his feeling of love. As he is a man's feeling of love, so is his gain. And faith is the root of all. One has faith, one has nothing to fear. One of the devotees now asked, sir, is it necessary to have a guru? The Master replied, yes, many need a guru. But a man must have faith in the words of the guru. One should constantly repeat the name of God. The name of God is highly attractive in this Kali Yuga. The practice of yoga is not possible in this age, for the life of a man depends too much on food. Clap your hands while repeating God's name, and the birds of your saying will fly away. Then the Master says, one should always seek the company of holy men. The nearer you approach the Ganges, the cooler the breeze will feel. Again, whenever you go to a fire, the hotter the air will feel. But, Sri Ramakrishna continues, one cannot achieve anything through laziness and procrastination. People who desire world enjoyment say about spiritual progress, well, it will all happen in time. We shall realize God sometime or other. There must be intense yearning for God realization. Sri Ramakrishna continues, I said to Keshav Sen, the great leader of the Brahma Samaj, this is what the Master told him. When the father sees that his son has become restless for his inheritance, he gives his share of the property even 3 years before the legal time. The mother keeps on cooking, and the baby is in the bed sucking its toy. But when it throws the toy away and cries for her, he puts down the rice pot and takes the baby in her arms and nurses it. I said all this to Keshav. Ramakrishna says, Father, it is said that in the Kali Yuga, the man can wish for God one day and one night, he sees him. He'll take that God and say to him, make it clear. All the great disciples of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, all of them made it clear that we must undergo spiritual practices. What